The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
And good morning. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
Now to the latest on the coronavirus here in Kern County, with thousands of people across the county currently isolating at home. 1,892 cases were announced yesterday, along with 2 new deaths. This after Public Health announced more than 8,700 cases on Tuesday, covering cases over a 3-day weekend, holiday weekend. 305 people in the hospital with more severe symptoms of the virus. That is 7 more than Tuesday. 54 people are in the ICU and fighting for their lives. As demand for testing continues to grow, Kern Public Health is holding a COVID-19 testing and vaccination pop-up clinic at Heritage Park in East Bakersfield. It is happening today from 3 to 6 p.m. No appointments are necessary. Pfizer and J&J vaccines will be available.
What happens to your body during a COVID infection is now fairly well documented. What happens after is much more of a mystery. 17's Chris Burton joins us in studio to break down what we know and don't know about post-COVID sickness. Chris?
Well, Maddie, good morning. It's something healthcare workers here in Kern County have seen firsthand. Patients unable to catch their breath or with stabbing pains months or years after infection. Though much about long COVID remains a mystery, we are beginning to get some answers.
After your body recovers from the chills, the cough, the shortness of breath brought on by a battle with COVID, you'll likely hope you're out of the woods. You might be wrong.
We are seeing also, a considerable proportion of patients and people, even after recovering from COVID, having what we call the post-COVID syndrome.
Post-COVID syndrome, long hauler's disease, long COVID. All names for the same poorly understood condition that can last for years after a COVID infection.
Long COVID essentially refers to the persistence of symptoms greater than 4 weeks after the diagnosis of COVID is made.
Those with the condition describe many and vast symptoms, from fogginess and fatigue to trouble breathing to joint and body pain. Because it's such a new phenomenon, long COVID's causes, as well as just how common it is in the infected, are essentially unknown. Dr. Amin focuses on children, and she says studies vary wildly on just how many kids are affected post-infection.
And some say 5 to 15%. Others say it's anywhere from 0.5 to 2%. But again, when you take into consideration the millions upon millions of children who are being infected, and you look at 2% of those children, that's a lot.
But there is one preventative step people can take.
It's taking away from the vibrance of their life. And it's something that we now know we can prevent with vaccination.
Although research is in early stages, multiple studies suggest fully vaccinated people who develop breakthrough infections are less likely to suffer symptoms of long COVID.
As Kern County continues to weather this latest surge, 17 News is keeping an eye on how the virus is impacting life here at home. Tomorrow on Sunrise, I'll check in with experts on whether this spike could be a turning point and where we go from here. Live in studio, Chris Burton, 17 News.
From our follow-up file this morning, the distemper outbreak in Kern County has caused shelters and rescue groups to euthanize infected dogs. And as the struggle to save those dogs continues, pet lovers across Kern County are stepping up to help. Staff at the Bakersfield Animal Care Center say they're testing dogs in order to isolate the infected ones, but they need more space. That's why they've paused adoption fees for dogs for the rest of the month. Since we last spoke to the center, 20 big dogs have been adopted, while another 5 have been fostered out.
The good news is we are getting a lot of dogs out of the shelter into foster homes, into rescues. People are coming out to adopt. So that's really helping us start making space for these animals in our shelter. And that's something we really critically need at this time.
Unity K9 will be hosting a free drive-through and walk-up parvo and distemper vaccination event on Saturday. The event will be in front of the parking lot of F&M Fabrics on Niles Street.
17 News is your local election headquarters. Bakersfield City Council last night held its second public hearing on the redrawing of its ward boundaries. 17's Maddie Gannon was at the meeting and has more on what the public had to say.
Tonight's hearing is to hear public comment on the draft redistricting map.
After a decade that saw Bakersfield's population grow by about 16%, the city is tasked with creating a new ward map that will last for the next 10 years. And at Wednesday's city council meeting came the first draft, the most changes coming towards 2 and 3.
A piece of Ward 1 that does go into Ward 2, this brown area. Previously all of Ward 3.
Under the proposal, the 2nd district, which includes parts of Central and East Bakersfield, loses some land to the 1st. The 3rd district, which has portions of the city's northwest, north, and northeast, would pick up some area from District 4, according to the city's public information officer. It's all for the purpose of putting about the same number of Bakersfield residents in each district, which the city says should be about 58,000. But population isn't the only required guideline. The new map must also meet the Federal Voting Rights Act, which seeks to ensure the voice of minorities at the ballot box isn't diluted, something Lori Pesante from the Dolores Huerta Foundation says Bakersfield's proposed map doesn't do.
They should be drawing at least 3 Voting Rights Act districts, but they are currently only drawing 2.
The act requires a certain number of districts to have a minority population of over 50%. Pesante says instead, the city's current proposed map breaks up many of those minority communities.
It splits our black community between 4 wards. We haven't had a black council member since 2010.
But the city is still early on in the process. It has until April to approve a final map.
Maddie Gannon reporting. The city will hold 3 more public hearings on its map, and residents can also submit their own drafts using the community mapping tool. We'll have more information on our website, kget.com.
5:10 is our time now, and the 42nd annual Bakersfield Prayer Breakfast returns this morning, with the event starting in just under 2 hours.
The event is in person this year at Mechanics Bank Convention Center. This year's theme is One Nation Under God. Bob McEwen is the keynote speaker. He has served 6 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives and is now the executive director on the Council for National Policy. The event starts at 6:40 a.m. sharp. Organizers say tickets will be available at the door for $25.
5:33 is our time now, and today marks 1 year since President Biden took office. Let's take you live to the White House this morning, where the president mounted a marathon defense of his time in office during a nearly 2-hour-long news conference yesterday. NBC's Bree Jackson is in Washington with more.
Good morning, Alex. President Biden appearing to offer a self-assessment of his first year in office, acknowledging setbacks when it comes to COVID-19 and promising to do things differently in year 2. President Biden painting a picture of progress. Despite soaring inflation, sinking approval ratings, and a COVID surge.
I know there's a lot of frustration and fatigue in this country.
The president's focusing on the positives, touting more than 200 million Americans fully vaccinated, the COVID relief bill passed, along with historic investments in infrastructure and record job growth.
We created 6 million new jobs, more jobs in 1 year than any time before.
Still, parts of his agenda hit roadblocks.
I did not anticipate that there'd be such a stalwart effort to make sure that the most important thing was that President Biden didn't get anything done. Think about this. What are Republicans for?
On this vote, the yeas are 52, the nays are 48.
But it was members of the president's own party who joined Republicans in rejecting a rule change that would have allowed Democrats to pass voting rights legislation.
I cannot support such a perilous course for this nation when elected leaders are sent to Washington to unite our country, not to divide our country.
Vice President Harris vowing that the fight isn't over.
The president and I are not going to give up on this issue. This is fundamental to our democracy, and it is non-negotiable.
President Biden acknowledging there's more work to be done to fulfill promises like unifying Americans.
Is the country more unified than when you first took office?
Based on some of the stuff we've got done, I'd say yes, but it's not nearly unified as it should be.
With midterm elections fast approaching, the president says he'll spend less time selling his agenda on Capitol Hill and more time on the road speaking with voters. Looking ahead, President Biden says he wants to pass pieces of his massive Build Back Better legislation, but says he will continue to fight for the entire package. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson, 17 News.
Bakersfield Congressman and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is doubling down on claims that popular social media networks are censoring conservative views, saying he's shifting his preferred video platform from YouTube to Rumble. Rumble's a media platform that's grown popular with conservatives, including McCarthy, who released a statement about his move from YouTube, saying in part, quote, "Big tech's deplatforming and censoring of conservatives and ideas that challenge conventional thought is out of control," unquote. Rumble has exploded in popularity in the last year or so, becoming a haven for conservative voices that frequently violated content moderation policies of more mainstream platforms.
A tragic development this morning with 2 parents arrested after their 1-year-old boy overdosed on the dangerous drug fentanyl. The Bakersfield Police Department says it happened Saturday afternoon on Kroll Way just off Gosford Road in southwest Bakersfield. Police say when officers arrived, they found the boy not breathing with a blue skin tone. First responders resuscitated the boy with CPR, and he is currently at a hospital. And although we don't know his condition, we're told he is stable. Investigators say the boy had been exposed to fentanyl and other illegal drugs. The parents, identified as 20-year-olds John Lawson and Gabriella Goldberg, were arrested. And a reminder that Bakersfield Recovery Services and local law enforcement are hosting a forum today to discuss the dangers and effects fentanyl poses to our community. You can watch it at 6:30 p.m. on the BRS and KGET Facebook pages. And for more information on the fentanyl crisis, including 17's Robert Price's in-depth series, Fentanyl, the Counterfeit Killer, just visit our website, kget.com/fentanyl. There you'll be able to watch stories from families who have lost a loved one to the drug and resources you can use to protect those you love.
From our follow-up file now, still no word on what caused a test rocket to explode at the Mojave Air and Spaceport yesterday. Emergency crews were called to the spaceport at around 1:30 p.m. An ABL Space Systems test rocket measuring 6 feet wide exploded as crews were conducting an engine test. The Kern County Fire Department responded after the blast caused a small fire. No one was hurt.
It looks like that crow was looking at the
Yeah.
wrong way. Yeah, looking at the camera. In your 17 Corner Watch, we've got new details this morning regarding a lawsuit against a woman who allegedly ran a red light, leading to a crash that killed a 13-year-old boy. The Bakersfield Police Department says 13-year-old Nicholas Peterson was wearing a helmet at the time of the crash, which conflicts with statements made in a lawsuit filed by the boy's biological father, who said the teen was not wearing a helmet while riding on the back of a motorcycle when he was struck by an SUV driven by Christina Moreno-Gonzalez. The wrongful death suit also names Peterson's stepfather, John Deal, as the defendant. Deal was operating the motorcycle last January when it crashed with the SUV at the corner of Coffee and Hageman Roads. Moreno-Gonzalez is charged with vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence and reckless driving. A hearing is scheduled for Monday.
A man and a woman have been charged in connection with causing a disturbance at Studio Movie Grill in which a gun was drawn. Eduardo Reyes and Ramona Monica Reyes are each facing a charge of stemming from Sunday's incident. Authorities say Reyes pulled a gun and pistol whipped a theater employee. The weapon was not fired. Both pleaded not guilty and are due back in court on January 28th. Meantime, a man charged with first-degree murder in the shooting of a man in East Bakersfield appeared in court yesterday. 18-year-old Aiden Martinez did not enter a plea because his arraignment was postponed 1 week. He's being held without bail. Bakersfield police say Martinez is accused of killing Fernando Bustamante on January 9th in the area of Oregon and Miller Street in East Bakersfield. Martinez is due back in court January 26th.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.